Good morning. I'm out early this morning and I'm doing this video because it's a significant occurrence for me. I've been struggling for a long time with the idea of getting out for really early morning moving meditations, which is what I've wanted to do for a long time now. I thought about it all last summer and didn't do it. I noticed as well during the summer I didn't get out much at all, because once the day takes over and we get busy, I spend most of my time in my treatment room or at home, constantly working through my to-do list, and so I never quite made it out into nature as often as I wanted to. And so this year I promised myself I would cultivate this practice of getting out first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock, and doing, getting out in nature. It's a bit later this morning. I woke up about 6:40 and then thought, right, this is it, I'm ready. I've been kind of thinking about it for so long, cultivating in my mind the idea of it, really addressing the procrastination, because, you know, we can have, well, I think procrastination gets a bad name, bad press, and we can beat ourselves up about procrastinating and even thinking about it in and of itself, actually. But I think there's wisdom in procrastination. I think there's things to think about when we procrastinate, when we've got an issue we're not quite sure about. I think it's worth exploring what the issues are in and of themselves. What is the fears potentially? What are the blocks? What are the hold-ups? There's definitely not a full-bodied yes when we procrastinate. So there are things going on. There's a lack of integrity there. There's an incongruence between perhaps the mind, the body, the spirit. It may be that the mind wants to do one thing and the body's saying, we're not ready for this. So I think there's infinite wisdom in procrastination, and it's always worth exploring what's going on rather than going for the do or die, now or never approach and throwing ourselves into a situation which we're still not quite sure about. There's still room for exploration there, I think. And so, yeah, it's been a while for me to come to this point where I've managed to actually get myself out and overcome this little challenge for me. It may not be a challenge for others, but for me, when I started to dig deeper and explore what the issues were with regards to not wanting to come out at 6 in the morning and do my walks, I noticed there were old mindsets there about it being potentially dangerous. I mean, I'm out here, I've seen one man and his dog, who was lovely. I feel well in the woods anyway. I don't feel in any danger. I've come out to the woods now for years on my own. I always feel well out here. So why would the morning time be any different? There's probably fewer people out at this time. In fact, there are. Nobody's out. And so that was an old mindset I had, probably ingrained in me from childhood, to not go out at times, at odd times, potentially odd times, late at night or early in the morning. So that was a mindset that I realised I had and challenged and chose to let go of with grace, because we're largely driven, aren't we, by our old mindsets. And until we challenge them, they kind of work away in the background there in our unconscious. Until we challenge them, until we question them and check out, is that my belief? Is that somebody else's belief, like a parent that put it in me as a little girl? And also, does it serve me? You know, is it helpful? No, it wasn't helpful, because it's kept me from getting out on these lovely walks. So not only was there a sense of fear there, which I realised wasn't my mindset, and I could let that go. I also had a sense of, you know, when you wake up first thing in the morning, I can feel quite vulnerable, actually. It's that netherworld, that kind of transition between deep sleep and then fully awakening and getting into the daily grind, getting on with life, immersing ourselves into our to-do lists again. And there's a pause there, there's a transition between those two worlds. And it's in those two worlds I can feel quite vulnerable. And so that was another bit of a challenge for me, to kind of just step out into the world, feeling quite vulnerable, feeling not quite myself, not quite with my armoury on, to face the world. So yeah, they were considerations to think about before I actually went ahead and did it this morning. and I was ready for it, is what I mean. Sometimes we might think we're ready for a situation. Our minds might convince us that we're ready, and yet our bodies are certainly not ready. There's definitely an integration phase that's probably needed to make sure that the body and the mind is aligned, that we feel ready to take action, to take on a challenge and to just do it. And that may take some inner coaching. That's for my belief anyway. That's what I believe. That's how it's worked for me. I've often put myself into do or die situations, thrown myself in at the deep end. And while the experience might have been quite okay, it would have been fueled by adrenaline, and I would have been on a high and felt as if it was a successful endeavour. Afterwards, what I've been left with is the physical, the somatic, the inner physical, which we call somatic experience, which has been, it was too much of a shock for my nervous system to manage. And so the lasting, enduring memory is not a pleasant one. It wasn't the fact that I did it and I overcame a challenge. My body wasn't ready for it. And so I'm left with that aftermath of not being quite ready. And so there's definitely a time to plan and prepare for when we want to push our edges and try something new and different. And I think the transition works better when the body, the mind, the spirit is aligned, they're ready. It's a full yes then, in every which way. We have what's known as a window of tolerance. Dr. Dan Siegel has produced this beautiful diagram. And literally, the description is a window, and we exist within that window. And that's where we feel comfortable, well, we connect to ourselves well, we connect to others, we show up in life, we feel fine. And we can reside within this window of tolerance, and that's okay. But and life seems great. But we are human beings wanting experiences, wanting to push our edges, enhance our lives. Step outside of our comfort zones. That's what life is for, ultimately, in my view. And so, yes, to push ourselves out of that window sometimes and have new experiences is the gift of life. But I think there's a way to do it. And as I said, if we push ourselves out of that window too quickly, too fast, when we don't feel prepared, when our mind says yes, but our body says no, then we can drop into a real stress state, and we become hyper vigilant. The nervous system kicks in. It acts as if it needs to protect us, as if we're in danger, and all sorts of physiological changes take place in the body, which means we're not actually experiencing the experience we wanted to have. We've gone into a big stress state then, and even a danger state, because if that extends, that sense of danger, and the body's in the stress state for too long, we can drop into a hypo state, where we go into a freeze state from a fight-flight state, whereby the body starts to shut down. And sure as chips is chips, after the event, it's unlikely you'll want to repeat that experience. That's been my experience anyway. I've veered away from it because the body remembers, the body holds every memory we've ever had, every experience we've ever had. And if we push our edges too quickly and too fast when we're not prepared, then the lasting, enduring memory in the body will have been of the nervous system kicking in and going into shock mode, into stress states, which doesn't serve us particularly. So the idea is to push our edges kind of gently, staying within the tolerance zone, but pushing gently, pushing a bit, preparing for these experiences, and thereby being able to immerse ourselves in the experience itself and stay in the experience rather than tripping out and going into those stress states and shock states. So I was ready for this today. It's been a long time coming, but in doing it, I realised I was ready. It was worth putting in the groundwork to do it. And so I'm out here today enjoying this beautiful morning. The birds are all alive, the sun's shining. I've been sitting here now probably too long, and it's warm enough to sit here, even in the woods. So, window of tolerance, Dan Siegel, it's a fantastic tool to use when you come to think about pushing your own edges, and setting yourself challenges, making sure the body's on board as well, because it's the body which will remember the experience you had, and you want it to be a good experience rather than a shock experience, a difficult experience that then you have to deal with afterwards. So if this has been helpful at all, drop me a line below perhaps. Let me know how you manage your comfort zones and how you push yourself beyond your comfort edges. It'd be interesting to know, because we're all different at the end of the day, and these are just my thoughts and my experiences and how I navigate through stretching my edges. So I'd be curious how you do it for yourself.